Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Combat Charts podcast. And this week we're going to be going over the previous UFC main card fight night, which was Blanchfield vs. Ferrero. We're also going to talk about the upcoming fight night as well. Allen vs. Curtis. This will be the second time they fought.
Yeah, Chris Curtis stepping up on short notice, saving the day. Not surprised by him doing that. That's just his type of character, really. There is a great, well, I say a great card, but probably more of a terrible card if we're going to be honest. Some real interesting sort of things that happened throughout this card. Obviously last week we had the bite, and then this week we've had some beautiful combination setups of eye pokes first. But, you know, overall, what was your thought on the card, and is it time to us to have this discussion about fight nights yet? Are we going to join that crew, or are we going to, stay true to ourselves? And because a few weeks ago, I don't remember if you remember us saying, but, especially me, I was saying I'm just grateful for there being fights every weekend. But yeah, it's slowly starting to get more and more frustrating, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so far to the start of the year, it's not been an amazing year for UFC so far yet. To think, we're 4 months in, we're a quarter of the year now. Yeah. And we've had maybe one or two fight nights or main cards, which we may have called, card of the year.
Yeah, true.
And in fairness, considering they're holding cards every single week, it is quite poor. Now, in all fairness, there are only so many fights you can make, and it's something which is always said. However, I'm really hoping that the next 9 months of this year are going to be a lot better. Hopefully a lot more stacked. And we're seeing a lot of names on here, which obviously it's great that we're seeing a lot more talent come up. And some of these names and some of this talent is very, very good.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing a lot of big fights. For example, a Gaziev versus Rosenstrike. To think Gaziev's on a main event.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It really does just express how these fight nights are, and I think that a lot of it does probably go into the fact that they're making these main cards. I feel like they're making them a lot more stacked than prior.
Yeah.
All of these cards are completely stacked. You think got Figueiredo on the early prelims coming up. Stuff like that. Aljo and...
Oh yeah, Aljamain and Qatar as well on the prelims, that one.
Which is crazy to think that, you're putting Aljamain Sterling on the prelims.
Yeah, it's mental.
So, and I feel like they're going to try and do that with a lot of these cards, 301.
Yeah.
We look at the previous one as well, 299, all stacked cards, and fighters can only fight so many times a year. Some fight 2 times, some fight 3 times. However, yeah, these cards have not been good.
No, and you get some of these main cards headlined by in these women's divisions. Obviously, Erin Blanchfield and Manon Fiorot, some of the most skilled women in the UFC, but sometimes you just know the fight is going to be stinky before it happens, don't you? And I'm not going to lie, yeah, this is the first ever time since I've been watching the UFC where I literally went to bed after the co-main event. The clocks went back in the UK, so we lost an hour of sleep anyway. So realistically, it was 7 a.m. when I would have been watching Erin Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot, and all 5 rounds I watched the fight back. Not the most exciting. I'm so glad I went to bed that night. But yeah, we'll get started on the bottom of the card. Chidi and Chikane against Reece McGee. Both went Chidi, I think, didn't we? But I thought he'd get him out there a lot earlier. A lot more of a technical sort of safe fight from Chidi. Usually we see this kill or be killed sort of mentality that he brings into the octagon, where in this one it was a lot more technical. His clinch game looked really strong in my opinion. Good elbows, really good elbows from the clinch, his knees, which we pointed out last week that would be big weapons. Reece McGee, he started snappy. Kind of a nice long jab, but his defense isn't all there. I just don't know if he's necessarily the right caliber for these UFC fighters. So, but what was your thoughts on the fight?
Yes, overall, it was a very different fight to what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be very much Chidi going out there and really just looking to throw his big finishing strikes, like we often do see. Like you said, that kill or be killed. And like I said, it's a much more technical fight, really. There's a lot more work in the clinch, which I was quite surprised about. However, I think that kind of favours him, really, especially with his utilisation of all his weapons. Reece McGee, we've not, from what we have seen of him, I feel like the grappling is still a really big area of opportunity.
Definitely.
It's a very big vulnerability in his game, and when you're fighting someone like Chidi, it's something which you'd like to be able to maybe potentially, have a bit more strength in that area to potentially utilise it, as they are both very good stand-up fighters.
Yeah.
Reece McGee, I thought he looked alright. But there are very holes, though. There are holes, and you always see it, and you saw it earlier on in the UFC career as well. overall, though, interesting performance. It's interesting to see him fight like that as well.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Chidi as well, just this sort of aggression he brings. We've obviously seen the really good fights he's put in with Onaseshuk, I think, and Gregor Rodriguez, both getting finished in those two fights. Do you think this could maybe be a turning point in his career where he maybe starts realising, because he's really tall for the weight class, got really good striking, uses knees, elbows very well. So do you think this could be a turning point in his career, or do you think this is just the kind of level that he can hang around at and beat these sort of guys, or do you think he can really push up? And because in my opinion, he's a fighter who should be just battling outside those rankings.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that like this implementation, maybe this could bring him a bit further. He is 35 now, though,
Yeah,
so he is definitely towards the last stage of his career. We saw Chris Weidman with his fight, and interesting fight.
yeah,
But it's to show, it does show that it really does fight age. I think around just outside the rankings, I'd like for him to push up further, but welterweight is very competitive,
Yeah.
especially when you look at a lot of these guys who are at the top. It's kind of hard to get anywhere close to it, really.
yeah,
I feel like though he's good at where he is right now, and I think that to fight outside these rankings maybe is someone which they tend to put these newer fighters against, just as a real taste, because it's a really raw taste of a UFC, isn't it, really.
yeah, definitely. And coming in against Chidi in your first fight or second fight, that's a good skill level that if you can beat him, you're ready for those top guys in the UFC. But getting on to the next fight, Bill Aljo, this one both called horribly wrong. But big fan of Bill Aljo coming into this one. I really liked his chances as well. But Carl Nelson probably coming with a UFC best performance. Looked super powerful. We spoke last week about his keys to victory and how he had to get in, and I don't know your thoughts on it, but from me, it just looked like he'd studied Bill Aljo a lot. Because Bill Aljo is such an awkward guy to fight. He kind of knew which way he was zigging and zagging, and he was cutting off the octagon really well, not really letting him circle round, and also knew what kind of angles Bill Aljo was trying from attack from, and straight away he kind of drops him, he slips and lands some real good shots. Bill Aljo kind of trying to point his way back into it, but Carl Nelson was not there to go decision, was he? He wanted that finish straight away.
Not at all, and it's interesting because watching Carl Nelson back in a lot of his fights, you kind of think to yourself he's not really active enough.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't really do much, and that's not something you can do against Bill Aljo. Like you said, he probably studied him very, very well. This is the type of fight you need to have against Bill Aljo to make sure that this doesn't happen. You can't be waiting, but you can't really be trying to read him too much because he just picks you apart. And the power in his hands is very, very evident. It was standing TKO.
Yeah.
It could have potentially maybe gone on a bit longer. I don't know whether or not that would have been a good idea or not. But to be fair, he wasn't too happy about it, and I'm sure that a lot of fans weren't either.
Yeah, that little Juice head of a ref had some dodgy calls on that night, didn't he?
Yeah.
Just the pure size of that bloke. He's got to be like 5'5", and that he was shredded, wasn't he? That was just a weird sign. Yeah, that ref did mess up a few things. There was also a fight on the prelims that, some people might say that it wasn't stopped early. In my opinion, he sort of had a chance to maybe take a few more shots and get up from it. But yeah, we saw in this one, there was this fight could have been let go a bit longer. The next fight we're going to talk about, Dumas got eye poked and then got obliterated with a uppercut overhand sort of afterwards, and then we'll get on to the Chris Weidman one because I'm sure we can have a lengthy discussion about all of these fights. So yeah, I think that he reffed all three of those as well. Luckily, he didn't have the main or co-main. But just some dodgy calls. Overall, Carl Nelson, how impressed were you with that knockout? Knocking out Bill Aljo, not many people go out there and smoke Bill like that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It does just show a kind of level to it because a lot of people just can't deal with Bill Aljo at all. They just can't deal with him. They can't read him. They can't really cope with the zigzagging. And when you're reading it and when you're picking it up, just like that, and you're putting on the finish, it really does show a lot of potential. It'd be interesting to see where he goes on from now. Being a featherweight, if you're a featherweight which is hitting hard like that, you can go far in that division without
definitely.
doubt.
And he's fought a lot of the top guys, and he's not a guy that really gets dominated much by other fighters. It's usually like sort of close decisions mainly, or so. It's interesting to see. He's fought Dry Herbert, went to decision. For that Fernando Padilla, who we saw have an excellent performance just a few weeks ago. So, he is a guy that can kind of push the rankings, and I think that's what he'll be looking to do. So yeah, overall really, really impressed with Carl Nelson, one of the biggest wins of his career up to this date. Getting on to the next one, Ruzabayev against Cedric Dumas. Ruzabayev's second fight in the UFC. You know, we spoke about the experience and stuff like that, and yeah, he looked good early on. I thought a bit basic. The right hand was just landing every day. Every time he threw it though, like every time he threw that right hand, he'd land clean on Dumas, and Dumas didn't really know how to get out of the way of it. But the fight ends obviously early. Kind of pokes him in the eye first. We saw on the replay, and then lands a massive shot. Dumas pretty adamant that they were going to run it back, but I don't see that happening. He was kind of getting beat up. But the interesting point is Ruzabayev, when it goes to decisions, I think he's gone to 8 decisions in his career and he's lost 6 of them and won 2 of them. So, you know, the fight was only just warming up for Cedric Dumas. And do you feel like he was kind of hard done by?
You have to feel like they're hard done by, especially from that eye poked. It's not something which I feel like happens really commonly at the moment. Like, I think it's been happening like a lot more commonly. A lot of just these fouls in general.
Yeah.
And it's something which a lot of the time you can't avoid, but you have to think to yourself, like, these fighters know what they're doing, really. Especially the next one we're going to talk about. So, with this year, it's hard done by, although Ruzabayev, there's a reason why he doesn't typically win his decisions, and that's because he's very much a hard hitter, but he hits very infrequently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, he's not throwing these massive strikes, he's not necessarily being super dominant in these decisions. If he's hitting you to finish you. And it's very, very evident as well. And the way he dropped Dumas, it's very impressive. We saw him in a few other organisations. He's fought in lots of different places.
Yeah.
And he has like a slam KO, which isn't something which you see too commonly, although in fairness he also had a lot of fights, so it's going to happen at one point or another.
Yeah.
And it really does just show the power and the strength. He's 6'4" in the middleweight.
He's a big dude, isn't he?
He is very big, and you can tell the power is just there. So it'll be interesting to see where he is on from here. I mean, the middleweight division is in the most respectful way possible. At times a bit shaky, so he could do very, very well.
Yeah.
Although it'll be interesting to see where he goes on from now.
Yeah, and not really much to talk on that one. Probably the biggest talking point of the card in this one, Chris Weidman turning back the clock with, you know, before we get too harsh on Chris Weidman, I do want to say this was a vintage Weidman performance. Wrestling looked good in the first round. Striking looked as good as it ever has before. Bruno Silva just, he really struggled to get into the fight, and it wasn't a help that I counted 4 or 5 eye pokes. I don't know how many you did if you kept count, but it was crazy. And so the ref in this one really confused me because they call it a TKO, he gets dropped, and then they see the eye poke happen, and it was overturned to a decision. You know, round 3, 2 minutes in, and it's a decision because there's a certain rule if it goes past the second round, and then it ends due to a foul, then they just take it to the scorecards and just go on that. But, you know, this was he'd been warned twice, the fight had been stopped, both got warnings for eye poking each other, but this was a real bad eye poke, and in my opinion, Bruno Silva, even if you get eye poke, you should never just jump to the floor like that, even if someone's pulled your eyeball out. I know that's easy for me to say, but, you know, when you're a professional fighter, is an eye poke going to leave you, like, reactionary just to jump on the floor in agony like that? I'm not sure. Maybe Chris Weidman claiming he was looking for a way out. I'm not saying that, but it was just a strange fight, and I was a bit sad for Weidman. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but what was your thoughts? Do you think he meant to do the eye pokes?
I mean, if he did, he's done very well with it. I think that it's interesting the point you make about Bruno Silva jumping to the floor. I don't think it's necessarily unnecessary. And the reason I say that is because you got to think, you know, you're in the pocket basically, and somebody just sticks both their thumb in your eyes. I mean, you kind of need to he's just indicating that he's damaged really, and sometimes the floor is often a safer place to be than trying to stand in exchange with someone who's throwing hooks at you and whatnot. At that point, there should have been like a point deduction, or a bit late for a point deduction, probably a DQ if I'm honest with you. At that point, like that, there should have been a point deduction maybe with the second one, although I know they both accidentally unintentionally poked each other in the eye.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that was necessarily him looking for a way out. It's like if you say, for example, you know, if you're like a pro footballer, I know that, you know, diving in football is like slightly different. Or not starting in football, but getting like, you know, someone clips your ankle and it keeps happening again and again and again. You make a big deal of it.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a bit more dangerous in the octagon because the likelihood is that you're going to get beaten on very heavily. So it's an awkward one, but the principle's still there. He's just showing that he's been winning. And it's a very visible one as well. And I feel like the one which Bruno Silva did, it looked very unintentional. They both looked very unintentional.
Yeah.
But his one looked like a punch.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and we look at Weidman, it did not look like a punch. His open palm strikes.
2 in a row as well.
Two
He banged his index finger in one and then his middle finger in the other. Crazy.
Yeah, and like it's also a matter of it doesn't really matter how much pressure you're putting on the eye. Any kind of pressure at all from a finger, a direct finger, is going to impair it. Perhaps maybe instead of him just grabbing a towel, you know, he maybe should spend like a little bit longer trying to recover because he wasn't particularly recovering. However, it definitely, you know, impacts the momentum and whatnot. Bruno Silva didn't look too bad at all. I don't think at all. I thought he looked a lot better than his last performance.
He
Seemed a bit more like Bruno Silva.
Yeah.
But the wrestling from Weidman, he went out there throwing his kicks at the get-go, showing that his leg is not broken.
Yeah, that was good to see.
Really impressive performance. Just a shame he finished him with 1 to eye poke.
And at the end of the day, he was given the win. With the finishing combination, if the ref did pull him off, I still think maybe at that point it should have been a DQ, but that just seems a bit harsh. But you know, it's a harsh sport, so just glad to see Chris Weidman get the win, even if it was in a weird sort of controversial way.
Well, he looked really good at us trouble. He looked like he was fighting really well, but it just should have been a DQ.
Yeah,
like it just should have been. It's not that he didn't perform poorly at all. It was honestly like kind of disappointing, really, because of how well he looked. He probably would have pieced him up on the feet if he didn't do it. That he could have maybe finished him even.
Yeah. There was definitely some points where Chris Weidman was getting close to the finish. You know, he really did look good, and I'm excited to see him fight again now. So yeah, hats off to Chris Weidman. Big congrats on the win. Next one, again, a fight in my head that might even be a bit weirder. Just because, you know, that the finishing sequence in this one, I'm just not used to seeing Luque kind of, without sounding too harsh, kind of gave up, didn't he? Like, if we're real, there's no other explanation for it, in my opinion. He pulls guard and just doesn't even try and get hooks in or try and defend the ground and pound that happens. Buckley really showing to be at a different level in this weight class. A massive, like, a huge win in his career. Luque, not too long ago, when he finished Tyron Woodley, was right up there to a title shot. So massive win for Buckley. But did you find the finishing sequence as strange as I did?
It's bizarre when it comes to someone like Luque. Like when someone like Luque is pulling guard, it could just be a matter of you've got to think Luque is not somebody who's getting dropped all the time.
No.
At all, really. And it could be a matter of that kind of like fight or flight. He's just trying to like, you know, work out like, okay, what do I do? Because if it's not a position you're in very often, then it's not something which you have a lot of practice, like is in the octagon, really working with.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that, you know, he wouldn't have had many fights where he's been in a situation like that at all, really. Especially someone who was tough as him. I know he had that brutal KO. So I think that with it, you feel the power as well. You're just trying to do what you can really about the situation, and it's not something which he's used to at all. Impressive performance from Buckley. They both start off that big kick, didn't they?
Yeah,
at the start, that big clash. It's a shame, really, because I would have liked to see the fight go on a bit longer, really. But at the end of the day, we both knew this was going to happen, or this could happen anyway.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think you went Buckley, didn't you? I picked Luque. This, to be fair, was one of the worst weeks I've had in a long time for predictions. I think I only got one right or something like that, 2 right. So yeah, not great for me. You smashed it last week, to be fair, on your picks, and yeah, you went Buckley. I obviously did know the knockout was very possible, but I just thought the experience from Luque would kind of get him through. But yeah, I was thinking, for these next few cards, I'm going to change the way I am thinking about my picks, because there's so many of these picks where I want to go with the other guy, but I just think picking like a Luque or picking some other people I've been picking recently is just a smarter one, where I'm just kind of going to let it go back to who I want to pick, you know, because, you know, for some of these fights you do just get a feeling something's going to happen, don't you, like from one guy. And yeah, that was definitely this time from Buckley. It was very 50-50 on who was the favourite, but kind of wasn't even competitive, really. Even before he pulled guard, it was Buckley just looking to land the big shots and Luque backing up, throwing kicks. That's all I took away from the fight. So yeah, massive win for Buckley. He's a hell of a character. we saw him go on Ariel Helwani's show and call him out for some dodgy stuff a few days later. So he's not scared of the publicity. Also, I don't know if you saw, he said that backstage you saw Luque give a brown envelope to James Krause. Obviously, James Krause being done for all the illegal betting allegations that... So yeah, Buckley having a little joke around there and pretending that Luque threw the fight for some extra money. He's just a real character, and I'm excited to see him in the rankings. Me personally, next, I want to see him run it back with Kevin Holland. I don't know how you feel about that one.
That would be very good. That would be interesting as well, because now that he is just developing the way he is, and we look at Holland now, I mean, Holland's still like very, very good. He had a pretty competitive fight with MVP, to be fair.
Yeah,
like, you know, it wasn't dominant at all. I wouldn't say it. It was very exciting. I think that for Wade Buckley, it's like, obviously we all know what he's like with his energetic and his kind of explosive finishes and whatnot. I think this could be a really fun fight.
Yeah.
I really do. Kevin Holland is so tough as well. This could be a war.
Yeah, Kevin Holland just seems it's impossible to knock him out. So I would lean Kevin Holland if that matchup happens again. But yeah, just so many fun fights you can make with Jackalon Buckley at the moment. Getting on to the main event. I don't know how long you want to spend on this one, but Erin Blanchfield, Manon Fiorot. Another one I went wrong. Fiorot just proving to be too big and too strong. Her distance management for me is just, especially in women's MMA, some of the best I've ever seen. It is insane. Blanchfield, being the short fighter, found it really hard to even get in clinch. Did land some good shots. Really impressed with how scrappy and tough Erin Blanchfield is, but Manon Fiorot just seems to be on a different level to a lot of these female fighters at the moment. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, no, so the fight wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, in all fairness.
Yeah.
And that's with all the respect. Like, I think Blanchfield, the striking from Fiorot, like, so the distance management is good, but it still wasn't what I wanted to see, really. Like, I kind of thought that, you know, Fiorot would be a bit more technical, a bit more on it. And to be fair, her striking didn't look as good as I thought it would. Blanchfield's striking probably looked a bit better.
It was alright.
It was alright, it wasn't too bad. It didn't take much on the ground. I think that when it did get over the ground, Fiorot got straight up right away.
Easy, yeah.
And like you said, the size does definitely make a big impact. Like, we see a lot of these women's flyweight fights, and we kind of... They're not the most exciting matchups to watch. Like, you kind of feel like, you know, it is. But at the same time, it's still like it's a sport which is still growing, or a lot of the greats I feel like have already retired.
Yeah.
Which is, like, obviously we have a few exceptions, but for the most part we're kind of just getting talent back up there again. But like, we're not seeing a lot of these, you know, really, really top fighters fighting as active as you were, or they've just not been about it. So this one here, Blanchfield, you could tell she had regret about her.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt. However, she just couldn't do enough, really. And I think maybe, you know, when she does continue to work on her just general MMA ability, this fight in a few years' time might be completely different.
I was thinking the same thing. These two will fight again, definitely. Especially in this flyweight division. It's not stacked with talent. So, yeah, Erin Blanchfield, I don't know about you, but for me it proved that she might just be a little bit off the championship sort of level. I'd love to see her and Rose fight now. I'd really be interested to see how that played out. Her and Macy Barber would be a good fight. So there's a lot of fun fights you can do with Erin Blanchfield. Manon Fiorot definitely deserves the next title shot now. So she'll be fighting the winner of Shevchenko and Grasso. And for me, if Grasso goes on to defend her title again, I think I'd pick Manon Fiorot to beat Alexa Grasso. I don't know if she beat Shevchenko, because I think Shevchenko could maybe get the takedowns unlike Blanchfield did, but you know, I would not be surprised if Manon Fiorot wins the flyweight title in her next fight. I think she has a decent chance against Shevchenko and against Grasso. What about you?
You see, they're both... It's really hard because both Grasso and Shevchenko are just of that level.
Yeah.
Where, like, it's a division which is very much interchangeable. Like, you can kind of change, but it's not like the flyweight division of men's or whatever it is, you know, where you kind of feel like you know who's always going to be champ.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. Like I think Erin Blanchfield, well, she's young as well. She's 24.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So to think if you're like that at 24, imagine you're gonna be like a 27, 28.
Yeah.
If not older, you know, say that she fights still in her like, let's say she hasn't even hit her prime yet.
She's probably got another 10 years.
Yeah, another 10 years, which is crazy, really. So yeah, it would be an interesting title fight. I don't know though. You see, like, some of the takedowns, the best securing takedowns. They've not had lots of fights either.
No.
Very experienced in the UFC.
Yeah, so yeah, that's our thoughts on last week's fight night. Gonna go over the main card predictions. Don't have no news or anything to talk about. So yeah, next week's episode is going to be stacked with just fight predictions. So yeah, sorry if this one is not living up to it, but these fight nights are they're a tough search, aren't they? If we're going to be honest. Getting onto the main card of this week, Trevor Peek against Charlie Campbell. Trevor Peek, probably one of your favourites to watch, right? Did you pick his knockout to be one of the knockouts of the year? Was that you?
I mean, it had to be like
yeah, the hammer fists against the cage.
I don't know many more complete martial arts. I really don't. Like, he must be like a purple second stroke black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine he's won like 7 judo gold world titles and all sorts. No, but Trevor Peek, he's almost like the mythical fighter, really, because the way he fights is kind of like what you see at UFC 1.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it works.
yeah. It's funny, man.
It's funny, but in fairness, right, it's effective, and we're still like learning what works, really. And I do genuinely believe like Trevor Peek versus like maybe Makhachev, you know.
Because he has the ability just to stand up, don't he? Like Derek Lewis style.
Well, to be fair, right, like Makhachev will keep him on the feet. You know what I mean? We've seen it, like, and worst comes worst, you know, he'll stuff a takedown. Like, I don't even think I think he telegraphs a lot of his shoes, Makhachev. So all it takes is one little hammer fist and he's out. But no, on a serious note, this is an interesting fight, really. Both are hard hitters.
Yeah, definitely.
And hard kickers as well. Campbell, he mixes up his weapons really well. Both really, really good on the feet. I believe in Peek.
Yeah,
I really do. Like, I thought about picking Weidman on the pod. I picked him on my verdict picks because I just felt this like thing, you know, this thing inside of me, which is like, you know what, he didn't look that bad against Tavares, really. Like, I still don't believe he looked that bad. Tavares just looked really, really good, and he bastard his legs, and it's not long now for surgery. And although it's a different scenario, I think that people are going to be, you know, maybe counting Trevor Peek out a little bit, thinking he's too basic. He's different.
He's got one no contest on his record. Just for a bit of fun, what foul do you think he did for it to get called a no contest? Do you think he accidentally slid a headbutt in somewhere or just kneed someone in the nuts?
Do you know this?
No, I don't actually know it. I'm just taking a wild guess. I would not be surprised if something mental happened, but obviously it was probably just an injury or something. But
yeah,
knowing Trevor Peek, he's probably pulled someone's hair or gouged their eyes out. You know, this guy just brings a different intensity to his fights, doesn't he? And you know, it's a hard fight for me to pick him in, but I'm doing it too. Screw it. You know, Trevor Peek. I'm gonna go second round TKO because, you know, obviously Trevor Peek is at a skill disadvantage. If we're going to be honest, we're probably everyone he fights, but you know, he's 9-1. He's made it to the UFC. Maybe he'll show a bit of improvements, and Charlie Campbell does leave his chin in there a little bit sometimes. This one is just, you know, I'm going with my heart on this one. I just want to see Trevor Peek doing some standing hammer fists against the cage. Charlie Campbell, again, probably the logical pick, but Trevor Peek just seems to hit so hard, and, you know, you're not going to get him out of there, are you? You can run that guy over and he'll stand back up and start kicking your car. So, yeah, just different level of toughness. So what's your final prediction?
So I'm going to go second round, but I'm not going to go TKO. I'm going to go KO. Trevor Peek doesn't leave him to breathe.
Touch of death.
Honestly. So the no contest was for a accidental groin kick.
Oh,
and he has never won a fight by kicks. Always by
won it by
strikes.
groin kick in my eyes.
Well,
I knew it'd be some foul.
The way I look at it, right, if you can like potentially stick 2 fingers in someone's eyes and then win, I mean, you know, they're wearing cups.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't got any protection for your eyes. Just
they're wearing cups, so you should be allowed to gouge them in the eyes.
Yeah,
right?
same as like, you know, just, yeah, why not?
I swear we've been bringing this up too much recently. That they should bring back pride rules and just let you do anything you want.
Nah, but there are some rules they should change.
What's your honestly? Are you gonna say a stupid comment now, or do you actually mean a proper rule?
No, I just think headbutts. Why not?
but
Like 'cause
that
you
would
gotta,
be funny.
You gotta think, right? Like if you headbutt somebody, it's a 50-50 chance you're getting finished yourself.
I don't think that's how it works. I think there's a technique to headbutt him where, like,
Not with Trevor Peake, that's not.
no, just forehead on the nose.
What I mean though, right, it's like you look at bare knuckle, right? With bare knuckle, it's probably a bit safer because they haven't got all this padding to protect their fists, so they can't punch at full volume all the time. And in fairness, right, with like it's probably the same headbutting. You can only like headbutt so much before you really hurt your head or open it up. So maybe the solution is just let them headbutt a few times. And like it's not you're not going to see loads of like UFC headbutts because not everyone can headbutt all the time. Same with bare knuckle, you can't always throw these massive strikes. Implement the headbutts, get in, knees on the ground. Why not?
I think you should probably start watching Leftway instead of UFC, to be honest. Have you seen the guy in Leftway? He's just hitting the pads and he's just throwing headbutts in with his combinations.
Why not? You might as well. Like, I mean, it's probably safer if anything, less damage somehow.
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of headbutts. Maybe grounded knees is a good one to bring in.
I'm not a fan of headbutts either. That was all a joke. I don't think that UFC fighters should be headbutting each other. Maybe headbutt to the chest.
Headbutt on the street is very useful, apparently.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they're an octagon, so...
Yeah, don't be headbutting anyone. Let's just change the subject. Getting on to the next fight. Walter Walker, if you didn't know, now you know, it's Johnny Walker's brother. Fighting Lucas Brzezinski. Brzezinski, in my eyes, he's the heavyweight Trevor Peake. This guy just runs in with big punches. That's a joke. I don't know who's better out of him and Trevor Peake. It's a toss-up. But Walter Walker making his UFC debut on the regional scene looked very good so far. It's kind of tough to find any of his fights, but I watched a couple earlier where he really shows good technical sort of distance boxing where he can jab. He kind of does get a bit carried away and just sprint into rage sometimes, but hey, that's what we expect with these big heavyweights. Brzezinski is exactly the same, if not worse. So for me on this one, Walter Walker, probably more of the technical striker. His head movement does scare me in this one because Brzezinski, although in my opinion not a very good fighter, if we're going to be honest, he brings the fight, doesn't he? That's what we can give him credit for. So Walker's got to be ready for that. But I think the smart pick, Walker. What do you think?
So I'm going to go Walker, and I'm not looking at it from a striking perspective. I do understand where you're coming from with the potential risk of Walter, and this is like a big step up in position. Although Brzezinski, he's not like high up on the ladder of heavyweights. He's kind of in that kind of awkward level. Yeah. Well, you can say at the bottom. He's not done too well in the last few fights, but something which we saw with Brzezinski, we saw him really struggle against wrestlers.
Yeah.
And that's something which Walker can and will do. And I think this fight is going to be very much a matter of just keeping him on the ground and landing these big strikes. Whether or not he'll finish him, I think that Brzezinski might be able to survive it, but for 3 rounds, I don't think he's going to be in a position where he's going to be raining down these strikes. I think they're going to be more strikes to just, stay on the ground. I'm on top of you. I'm in charge. Like, I mean? These kind of just like, almost like the Almeida kind of just, I mean? Not so much like the posture up and rain down.
Control over damage.
Exactly. And I think that's what's going to win it. He could potentially finish him through doing so. Like, there is a very, very high possibility. And we have seen Brzezinski get finished a few times. However, for the most part, I think it's going to be a relatively dominant fight. If I'm honest with you, I don't think it's going to be a very exciting fight.
No.
But so I'm going to go with Walter Walker. Should be interesting.
Yeah, to be fair, the grappling is kind of how I see it going as well. I'm going Walter Walker decision. But yeah, this one kind of not straightforward because it's heavyweight MMA, but a lot of people hyped up around Walter for good reason, and hopefully he comes into UFC with a bang. Getting on to the next fight, probably the one on the main card that, this is going to be one of the fights of the night, in my opinion. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Gigas. Since Bahamondes came in off Contender Series, I actually remember watching the episode that he fought for his contract on, because I think there was 2 or 3 front kick knockouts in a row on a Contender Series night, and he was one of them. So very, very talented kickboxer, this guy. Has struggled a little bit in a couple fights where if you close the distance, you can land big shots on him or kind of put him against the cage. But when he's fighting at range and kind of finding his feet, letting his footwork go, and he's kind of letting the output take over the fight. That's when he really gets into flow state, and that's what I think Christos is going to really struggle with. We saw Gigas kind of fight a similar sort of style fight against Daniel Zulesberger, who we talked about a week or two ago. Just, he's going to really struggle to get on the inside. The jab's going to be a massive problem. Bahamondes has one of the better jabs at lightweight, really snaps his whole body into it. So it's an uphill battle for Christos. How do you see this one playing out?
So this is an interesting one. It's going to be quite competitive. Bahamondes, like you said, the kicks are a really, really big issue. And I think that's going to take a lot of place on the feet. It could definitely win the fights tonight, without a doubt. It's going to be really competitive on the feet. I think there's going to be some really, really good striking. I'm going to go Bahamondes. I'm going to go second round finish. And the reason why is I look at Giagos. Obviously, you know, we've not seen loads and loads of Bahamondes yet. Giagos has been about for a while now. Giagos, he's finishable.
Yeah.
Like, he really is. And that's what I think it's going to be. Just a matter of catching it really. Although I think for the first round or so, it could be very competitive. And to be fair, I could see him maybe going into the second round, you know, with Bahamondes warming up a little bit and kind of just picking them apart. But I think third round, he's putting them out.
Yeah. See, I was going third round on this one too. I think the damage is just really going to start adding up. He's not going to be landing. He doesn't, unless he catches you with a big head kick, he's not hitting you with massive shots throughout the fight, but it's little sort of thudding, constant shots. Everyone he fights, you know, they've got, their eyes are closed up, their noses are bleeding, their lips are swelling up. So just real damage creator, this guy. And yeah, that's going to be his path to victory. I wouldn't be surprised Christos really experienced. This might go to decision. A lot of Bahamondes' fights do, but when he does finish people, it's in an entertaining way. So yeah, I'm going to go third round TKO. Getting on to the next one, Morgan Charry, second fight in the UFC. Looked really good in his debut in France. But fighting Chet Marshall, who's, you know, been such a tough sort of fighter at this stage in his career. So many experienced fights outside of the UFC. Now in the UFC, beating Jack Jensen, beating Trevor Peek in an absolute war. That fight was just crazy. How would you see this one going?
So it's an interesting one. Like, so we saw Charry in his first fight. We all know how good he is on the ground, but he took it to the feet and he did some real damage. What was it, like a liver kick?
Yeah.
Finish or whatever it was. Maresca, there's something which about him, and it's all to do with the experience. Like, it's not as if he's had like loads and loads of fights or anything, but who he has fought and where he has fought as well, he's kind of been fighting like experience really his more or less his whole career. Like, he's not really been having easy fights at all. And with Maresca, the way he fights, he very much brings the fight to you.
Yeah.
And he's very much on you. Something which I think Charry, it'll be interesting to see how he reacts. Last time he was kind of given a bit of room to play about, you know, and this is somebody which he could have very much grappled with. I think Maresca, he's also not bad on the ground at all. He's got a few finishes.
I think if anyone takes his fight to the ground, I think it would be Maresca.
But I think it's going to be more a matter of pressure, though. I think it's going to be more a matter of pressure. I'm going to go with a finish. This one, I'm going to go second round finish. I think first round is going to be quite competitive. Going to be feeling up. I think the second round he's going to just a flurry of strikes in the quantity because he just goes and goes and goes.
So you're going Maresca, yeah?
Yeah. Maresca second round.
Maresca, yeah. See, this one, I was going to go Maresca, but I think Charry, he's a really good sort of rangy fighter. We saw the body kicks and stuff. I think he's going to win the first two rounds, and it's going to just be the last round for him is just going to be about getting out. It's going to be ugly, you know. Shep, it's so tough, brings a fight, never gives up. It's not like in his debut, in Charry's debut, where, you know, Giacchini was kind of backing up, letting him work, kind of just happy to take the punishment, and just when the sort of opening for him to get out of the fight, he took it. But Maresca is never ever going to do that. He does not take a step back. He's a real tough dude. So this one's really close for me, but I'm going to go Morgan Charry just by decision. It's going to be razor close. I really like this fight. Good matchmaking. Going into the co-main event, Alexander Hernandez against Damon Jackson. Yeah, it didn't seem that long ago where Alexander Hernandez was undefeated 12-0, getting his massive opportunity against like number 6 ranked Donald Cerrone, and he's on stage talking loads of rubbish and got humbled very quick. And there's been a massive drop in his career since then. We see sometimes with these undefeated fighters, once you beat them once, it's just kind of touchy. And Hernandez got finished by like Billy Quarantillo and stuff, people that a few years ago you really wouldn't think would be beating him. Damon Jackson, 35 years old now, kind of been on the wrong end of a lot of hard knockouts with the Dan Ige that won, the Ilia Topuria won, both two very high opponents. So, it's not like he's not used to fighting high level people like Hernandez. Kind of a hard one to call. I'm just going to go Alexander Hernandez. He's got the youth. He's way more athletic, and his offense skill as an MMA fighter is actually very good. It's just when it comes to defense and his gas tank and stuff. So I'm going to go Hernandez. I think he'll get it done quite easily. I'm going to go second round TKO. I've got a lot of finishes on this one, but sometimes that's just how it goes.
Yes, it's an interesting one. Like, I completely understand where you're coming from, and like you said, 31 years of age, there might not seem like a big difference, in UFC terms. The difference between 31 and 35 plus, it's a major difference, especially when these fighters aren't at the top of their game. That's when it has the biggest impact. Looking at this one though, I think with the gas tank, I think that's going to have a really big impact. And I think it's going to be a matter of, I think something Jackson's going to do really well is just really utilise the wrestling just to wear him down a little bit, and it's going to become more and more effective the more tired he gets. I'm going to go with Jackson. I'm going to go decision. This isn't a fight I'm super excited for, if I'm honest with you. Like, this is for a co-main, it's hard because you have to kind of think like, who do you put on the co-main for this one? Well, easy answer, Trevor Peaks. So, but with this one here, it's not a fight I'm super excited for. I don't think it's going to be super entertaining. However, I'm going to go Jackson decision. He might lead to the first round.
Yeah.
He might get a bit gassed out Hernandez, but I think that this is not a comfortable win. However, it's a pretty confident one.
Yeah. Yeah, getting on to the main event. Obviously, the rematch, this fight happened a few years back. Brendan Allen seeming to reach a whole new level where maybe Chris Curtis is maybe declining a little bit, if, that's probably fair to say, right? But I think Brendan Allen just showing in his last win against Paul Craig and the win against Bruno Silva, he is just really taking stride, mainly in his stand-up as well. Got so many rear naked choke finishes, like, I can't remember how many I've seen him do, but it's enough, that's for sure. And, a decent opportunity to get another one this weekend. The main thing that sticks out to me, Chris Curtis fighting a lot of grapplers throughout his career, never really been taken down. 93% takedown defense rate in the UFC, one of the highest there is. And Brendan Allen not necessarily known for his wrestling. So that's why, in my head, I'm kind of finding it hard to pick Brendan Allen. But then again, Jack Hermansson stood on the feet with Chris Curtis and outstruck him for 3 rounds. So with this new level that Brendan Allen's reached, maybe he on the feet is going to be an okay fight for him. Because let's be real, in that first fight he got smoked. He did not want any of that on the feet, and that showed very quickly.
It's interesting what you say about the decline in progression. I mean, the last fight Chris Curtis had was a Marc-Andre Barrios.
Yeah, Barrios.
It was not a very exciting match to watch. Was that one which was like the sparring match?
Yeah, the first 2 rounds were terrible. The third round heated up a bit.
So with like Chris Curtis, what's exciting to watch about him is like his boxing is so clean. Like for it's just so like slick with the slits and whatnot, and it is like evidence that like boxing is like a really big part of MMA, like without a doubt.
Yeah,
it does really just prove the value of it. However, when we do look at it, like Brendan Allen, his striking, like you said, it's just a new level. His against Paul Craig, that was a real eye opener.
Yeah,
and it does just like show how much he has developed as a martial artist. You look at it 3 years ago, that boxing was really all Curtis needed to lay him out, and it was a very, very comfortable fight as well. I mean, I know there was a point at one point where like Brendan almost had like a leg lock or something. Yeah, but for the most part, he was generally pretty comfortable. This one here, I am going to go Brendan Allen's submission. It is interesting what you say about the takedown defense. Like, to have a takedown defense like that stat is impressive. However, Brendan Allen has all of these tools now, which he didn't have beforehand, and there are so many ways to get somebody on the ground rather than just taking them down.
Yeah,
I could see potentially maybe even like big leg kick, potentially sweeping them, or maybe something which, like, maybe to the upper section of his body, which might result in him dropping down. And that's really where he wins. I think as well, like the distance management as well, the range, he's just fighting at such a great range now. Beforehand, he wasn't.
Yeah, I think where the where the danger does come in for Brendan Allen, when he does go for takedowns, sometimes he kind of enters with his hands down, and that's kind of what happened in the first fight with Curtis. And as well, we saw him get stunned quite badly against Bruno Silva for it. And so yeah, I think Curtis could take advantage of that. Right now, I'm going to say this here, yeah. I don't know who I'm picking, right? But right now, today, I think I'm going to pick Chris Curtis. I think the takedown defense will stand up, and I think Allen's going to be winning the fight, but he's going to get caught coming in trying to go for a takedown. Allen, again, probably the smarter pick, but I just want to pick Chris Curtis, so that's what I'm going to do. I think as well, once you knock someone out, it's kind of it's just another mental hurdle you got to get over, knowing this guy knocked you out. So yeah, but really close matchup, bit of a better main event than what we've had the last few weeks, and yeah, that's it. I'm not 100% on this fight, but that's all we've got to talk about on today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on Spotify, like and subscribe, share us around, and we'll be here again next week.